I've lived my whole life in this one town where I met many great people, but I really wanted to explore the rest of the world, understand other people, and I had the sense that I would learn a lot from it and change as a person. That's definitely what happened. My whole life I've been messing with computers, whether it's breaking them apart, installed mods in video games, just always been like trying to figure out what's behind the screen.
Any specific culture shocks that you felt?
Language, not so much, but I remember the first time I saw someone wearing sandals with socks was just mind-blowing to me. When I realized, oh my god, I'm in a completely different country now by myself and I have to figure this out. There was a bit there where I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go anymore. And I was just like, oh my god, what have I done?
Where do you see your passion for music going?
That's a great question that I feel like I ask myself every day. I know that I'm gonna continue to make music for myself. There's always like something I'm trying to express. There's obviously a lot of fun to doing it by yourself, but also I've realized when you can share that feeling with other people, that feeling of like we've created something together, it's just a really great feeling. There's nothing that's gonna substitute the experience of actually coming here and living a completely different life than you would if you just stayed in your hometown. I don't think I realized how big of a jump it was, how much my life was gonna change.
Hello, and welcome back to College, a show where we share the incredible transformations of international students who studied abroad at college in the US, in the small town of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, at Augustana University. Today's guest is from the iconic city of Rio de Janeiro. When this episode was recorded back in December 2023, this person had just graduated with their computer science major and data science minor. In this conversation, we talk about the factors that swayed this person into studying abroad in America and how they came across Augustana, adjusting to their new culture both right away but also many years later, computer science classes, starting a new clothing brand, taking classes from the very new Multimedia and entrepreneurship major, their future in music, and much more. I'm super glad I was able to reconnect with this person on the podcast. It's a fun dynamic just showing up, catching up very briefly before we hit the record button. I admire this person's creative spirit, and even more so I admire the growth that he has had during his college journey. Join me as we go back to college with Daniel Leite. Welcome back to college, mate.
You, like I never left.
You graduated last week.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You haven't even had a chance to leave campus yet or anything.
No, yeah, pretty much just living the same life still that I was as a student.
How does it feel to actually finally be done?
Like I have lived so much here and experienced so much, and at this point I am fully ready to move on to the next part of my life, you know.
Have you got anything sorted for what the next chapter may hold? Any jobs lined up?
Sorted, not so much, but planned out maybe. Yeah, I guess I've just been like applying around here to just software development jobs, which is what I like doing, is what I've been doing. But yeah, whoever decides to take me in, whether it's around here or whether it's somewhere else in the country, we'll see what the future holds in that aspect.
Did you have any internships or anything that maybe like a few connections in the industry already?
Yes. Although, like I was telling you before we started recording, it was when I was in Brazil, it was this like multinational company. So they have like they do work here in America, and then they do work in South America and in Canada and whatever.
So they're a global company.
Yeah. They're not everywhere, but they're on the way, you know. But it was a great experience, I feel like, just in the sense of understanding how that industry works, like what my day-to-day would be in that job and stuff. So yeah, it's just great to like, now that I'm applying to just be full-time doing that, I can tell people like, hey, I've had this experience and I've done this and that I know you understand how that goes, and I understand how that goes. So
And it makes a big difference actually having the college degree. Hey, I've done this.
there is that too. There's
I'm
that
legit
too.
now.
Mm-hmm.
You can be ready to hire me.
Exactly. That's the part of like the whole like applying the jobs process that is going to be completely new to me, because before this, I would always
Have
say
a little bit of credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the hardest part, finding your first job.
And before I'd be like, oh yeah, so I'm in the middle of college, I'll be done in X years or X amount of time. And now I can say like, yes, I have graduated in this. I have this degree. I should theoretically understand about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I think you have to wait a little bit of time before your OPT is approved as well.
Yep. That's true. I applied for that in early November, I believe. And so it's still in that whole approval process. Got to wait on the US government. Hopefully it doesn't take too long.
But hopefully that'll be done soon. And by the time you find a job, bang, you'll be ready to go.
That's the plan.
So how did this whole journey start for you, Danny? Because you're from Brazil and now you're in South Dakota of all places.
Yep. That was the main question right when I got here. People asked me was like, how did you get to South Dakota?
I feel like as an international student, it's just such a common question.
It really is.
And I find that there's always an interesting answer behind it too.
Fair. In my case, it was just like the regular, I knew I wanted to study in America. Because I had the opportunity to, and I was like, why not take the opportunity? And then I was told, and I was researching, and I was always told you should apply to many different places with like different levels of acceptance rates throughout the country. So like I literally went on the College Board website, and they have like a list of, I believe, all of the universities in America. And then I just went and like filtered through like the ones that would have a good program for what I wanted to study, and the ones that had like a good campus life and that sort of stuff. And so I ended up applying to like 4 or 5 different colleges here in America. There was one in like Florida, there was one in Oregon, and then Augie was one of them.
So you very much had to look yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really have like a school resource or anything like that pointing me in the direction. Like I had teachers who tried to help me, but they didn't study here, so they didn't have too much information. So it was definitely a lot of Googling, a lot of just, researching how to do stuff.
And while I'm looking at the world map here, Brazil is actually quite a big country. I didn't really realize how big it is. What part of Brazil are you from?
So I am from Rio De Janeiro.
Yeah.
That's going to be...
And that's the capital?
It used to be. It's not anymore.
Not anymore?
It used to be until the 50s when they built Brasilia, which is the current capital. And so Brasilia is at the very center of the country. Like if you look right there, when it's not near any coast or not near any other country.
Yeah.
That's where Brasilia is. And their reasoning was like, oh, it's in the middle of the country. So like it's equal access from all distances. But yeah, I'm from Rio, which is the old capital. And that's right there at the coastline right before it like caves in to Sao Paulo. That's Rio. And then I don't know if you can kind of see, but there's like a small blue dot over there. That's the Guanabara Bay. And it's like literally a bay that has like towns surrounding it. The city of Rio is on the far east side. And then where I was raised for most of my life, Niterói is on the west side. So there's just like a bridge that connects them.
And so Rio is a pretty big city.
Yeah. I believe it's about like 8 million or something like that.
8 million. Huge. Yeah, okay. So then I'm just trying to think, Brazil, big country, Rio, huge city. What was it that sort of sparked you to actually look abroad and say, well, I want to actually go study in the US?
I'd say there was a couple reasons. One, that I knew that the job market for what I wanted to do was really good in the US. And it's not bad in Brazil either. It's like growing, but it's definitely a lot more, grown already in the US. And another was just like I was saying, I had the opportunity. My dad had lived in the US when he was like a bit older than me. So he was always kind of instigating, like, hey, if you want
It's
to.
a cool place.
Yeah, it's a cool place, exactly. And so I always like had it on the back of my mind. And once it got around like high school, I was like, why not? I feel like I've lived my whole life in this one town where I met many great people who are still my friends to this day. But I had this weird sense that I really wanted to explore the rest of the world and see how other people live, like understand other people. And I had the sense that I would learn a lot from it, and change as a person. That's definitely what happened.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh-huh.
And were there any other classmates of yours back home in Brazil that were doing something similar?
There were. So there was like, when I took the SAT at this like, I think it was like an American school that they have somewhere in Rio. There were 3 friends of mine that I went to school with that took it with me, but I was the only one that ended up actually moving here and actually like completing the process.
Right, okay.
Mhm.
That's a pretty big jump for someone just to decide, hey, I'm going to go to the US and
Yeah,
here we go.
Yeah, it is. At the time, I don't think I realized how big of a jump it was, how much my life was going to change. I think I just kind of went with it.
Yeah, huge leap of faith. I
Mhm,
love it.
mhm.
And then so you're looking at places in the US. I keep glancing up at this map because it's such an awesome map.
Yeah, it is. It's so detailed.
Yeah, I think I've just been, as I've been waiting for you to come in to record, I've just sort of been trying to absorb the whole map. And I think it really is powerful to give a full perspective of what the world's like.
Mhm.
But I'm just thinking, in the US, there's lots of different colleges. I mean, I need to probably Google at some point and work out how many colleges there are because there's thousands of them. Some of them huge, some of them really tiny. But what was it for you? What were you actually looking for in a college over in America?
Well, I'm not gonna say I wanted a good party life, but that's, definitely um
You wanted a lively culture.
exactly, just a place that like I would actually network with a lot of people and it wouldn't be just like too much of everyone in their own bubble. And like Augie, for being in a place that's cold for a lot of the year, isn't like very much where everyone is closed off. It's a place where it's easy to like, well, I don't know if easy is the word, but like it's common for people to get out of their shell and like meet other people and just like talk to people that they didn't know before. So that's great. That's one of them. I think um just also definitely a place that would like have a good department for what I wanted to study. Because the big thing was also like having good infrastructure that sometimes isn't available back in Brazil to like have the best education that I could possibly have.
And so were you already on that computer science route?
Yeah. It was early in high school that I decided I wanted to do that. It's also one of those decisions where I didn't think too much of why I wanted to do it, but I just like decided.
It just felt good and just kept running with it.
Mm-hmm. Like my whole life I've been messing with computers, whether it's just like breaking them apart or trying to install mods in video games and stuff like that. Just always been like trying to figure out what's behind the screen. And so I felt like it was the natural next step.
Yeah. So you're looking at all these schools, and so tell me exactly how you came across Augie.
So like I was saying, I like searched up on the College Board, and that must have been where I found it because
Is that a website, College Board?
yeah, I believe I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
If I'm like not mistaken now, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, collegeboard.com, which has like a list of the universities and it has like just the usual requirements like SAT information and stuff. But that must have been where I found it because like I honestly don't remember applying specifically here, but 3 months ish later I got my acceptance letter and like with scholarship information and whatnot. So I was just like, hey, that's great. And this ended up being the first place that accepted me and also the one I came to because all the other ones were like pretty good, but they were either just too expensive or just there was some other like factor that to where I couldn't go there.
Yeah. Well, so you had your sights early set on Augie, being the first one to actually reply back and say, hey, you got admitted to our school.
Yeah, that helped, because then I had some good time to think about how my life was going to change coming to Sioux Falls, and had some time to like research how this place was.
Terrific. And so what was it like when you came on that plane over for the first time?
I think I'm a guy that sometimes things take a while to really hit me, like I was telling you
You
before.
were saying before, I was asking you before we started recording, how's it feel to be graduated? You're like, you know what? Doesn't really feel any different just at the moment.
Yeah. So it's a similar sentiment to how I felt when I first got here. I was like, great, because when you first arrive here, you meet the IPO people, the staff, and then like you'll meet 2 or 3 other international students that are going through the same onboarding processes and whatnot. So like I was like, yeah, this is exciting. I think actually when it really hit me, when I realized, oh my God, I'm in a completely different country now by myself and I have to figure this out, was my first night in the dorm. Because my roommate hadn't arrived yet, so I was just by myself, just like with this bare empty dorm, like my one suitcase of stuff that I was gonna unpack still. And I was just like, oh my God, what have I done?
I think that, for me, that's sort of when things started to sink in, because after all that travel, all that sort of commotion, you sort of just settle down, just like start to process, whoa, I'm in a completely new place.
Exactly.
Dang. That's really cool. And there's, I guess, when you come in, there's just so much that goes on too. So did you get thrown in straight into, did you come at the start of the school year?
Yeah.
So straight into orientation and all of that?
Pretty much. I think I got to Sioux Falls a few days before, but then I was in the hotel with my parents, so it still felt like I was just
so
on
your parents
vacation.
Came over?
Yeah, they did. They did for the first week to just kind of figure out what the city was like with me and where stuff was and stuff. But yeah, then that first dorm night, I think, was even when they left. So then I was really like alone in the country.
Yeah, it's like there's no one else you know, just left to your own devices. Yeah, it's such a, sort of a scary feeling at the time, but I think reflecting back, I like to think it's very liberating feeling to just like cut all ties with what you previously known, and now it's like just a new beginning, new chapter of your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so how did you sort of adjust to college life?
Say slowly but surely. I just started like coming out of my shell and making new friends. I think that was one of the main things, because like academically, like obviously college is much harder than high school, but the processes are pretty similar. You have a professor, you have grades, you have stuff that you have to do and projects. So that I like was kind of aware that was going to happen. But the big difference was like meeting all these new people and like getting used to the culture of this campus, and like just slowly getting into the routine, I guess I would say, that one usually has on this campus, like the activities that happen weekly, and just going to have meals at the dining hall and stuff like that.
Yeah, it all takes a lot of adjusting.
It does. That like routine part, I feel like, was the biggest one. Like an example is just the fact that the dining hall, I think now they might be open till 8, but back in the day it was 5 to 7. And I was always a guy that used to have dinner at like 9 p.m. So I
just kept rocking up and, shut.
Yeah. Like I'm not hungry yet. It's like 5 p.m.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Were there any, because we've sort of touched on a few, but any specific culture shocks that you felt? Like, did you have a problem with language, or, I don't know, just the way people dressed, interacted, anything like that?
Language, not so much, but dress, I guess, like, it's not a big thing at all. And now it's just funny. But I remember the first time I saw someone wearing sandals with socks was just mind-blowing to me.
Hey, you can't do that.
Yeah. And then learning that like it's a very common thing around here. Now it's like, oh, whatever. But at the time I was like, oh, okay, so some like even outfit decisions are super different, like depending on where you're from and the weather of where you're raised.
Yeah, totally. That's a very funny example.
Yeah, yeah.
The socks and the sandals.
Yeah.
I mean, even I remember my freshman year, just I thought how weird it was when after we've gone through the 6, 7, 8 months of winter, and then there's people outside wearing shorts and a t-shirt when it's still freezing cold, but just in comparison to how
Yep.
cold we've just come from,
Yep.
people are just walking around
There's
as if
that
it was
too.
summer
There's
day.
that too. It's not too rare that you'll find someone in the middle of winter here who's wearing shorts outside.
Yeah.
Hmm.
People here are built different.
Oh yeah.
And so, Danny, what was it like for you adjusting in the classroom? Because Augie is pretty known to have high standards for the academics. Were you able to slide in and, not have too many complications in the classroom?
I'd say like my first semester was honestly pretty good in that aspect because I think I was still in that rhythm of like studying for, because I had done a lot of studying for SATs and stuff like that. So I think I was still in that rhythm. But then there got a point where it kind of started becoming harder because Augie is like academically, like you said, a school that has very high standards for its students, and it just like grows very quickly. First semester you have like a few classes that are mostly introductory, and then after that you're just basically thrown to the wolves. And I mean, there's support systems here, obviously, but you gotta find them and figure out how to use them effectively. So there was definitely a learning curve to that too. But I'd say the main aspect that I had to get used to was just the differences in like how discussions are held in classroom. Because like I'm a big fan of classes that have a lot of discussions because I feel like that's when the the knowledge or the topic really like gets in my head, is when like I have questions and those questions are either answered or there's a debate that goes on around it.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to really reflect
Yeah.
on, well, like if it's other people's opinions or perspectives or just even covering other course material. It's just a great way to get the brain ticking over and hear
Yeah.
those different perspectives.
Yeah. And there were some classes that were like that, but then there were some classes that really weren't. It depends on, I guess, like the professor, but also the students that are in it and the subject and whatnot. But some classes I had to like really change the perspective of how I was gonna really absorb that knowledge. If it couldn't be based on that, what was I gonna do? And that's when I slowly started to learn how to actually take notes and stuff like that, and like study with my own notes. It's not really something that I had the habit of doing before.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a similar experience, and I think at college is a big difference to high school. High school is still a bit more structured, a bit more guided. But college, I mean, you have pretty few lectures compared to the amount of work that you have to do. So you are left to your own devices to really go through the textbook, go through the course material, and actually learn outside of that classroom hours.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like this last semester of mine, like I'm used to all this stuff now, but it's still, I always remember now like all these challenges that to me before were impossible. Like um for example, like sometimes you'll have a bunch of different assignments on some online platform and your professor will barely mention them in class. And it's kind of up to you to go there and really look it up and see what you have to do, when you have to do it, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the old curveball that the professors like to do sometimes. Because
Yeah.
I think it's good because they really leave you up to your own devices to really study and learn the material.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you get to a test and you're like, oh, well, we talked about that briefly that very first lesson, but that was sort of all we sort of covered on that topic. And then
Yep.
you still have to recall it months later in the final exam.
Yep.
So it can be pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the computer science classes? Were they everything that you could have hoped for?
In general, yeah. I think it's a common, well, it's probably a common college experience to like some classes more than others and have, better performance in some classes than others. But in general, it was Augie's computer science department is not very big, but it is like it has everything you need, as far as professors or infrastructure or just like the stuff that they're actually teaching you is stuff that will build you up towards a career in the present moment. That's a sometimes like a thing with computer science departments that people say like in some places they teach you stuff that isn't exactly used anymore, or like because obviously there's theory that you always need to know, that like
Just the computer basics.
Yeah, but then there's also some technologies that like were pretty big 10 years ago, but now it's like not so much. And when you look for a job in the career, like they're not really going to ask for that, but they will ask for this other stuff that maybe your professors never covered. But here in general, there was a pretty good sense of that of like keeping up with what's actually going on. So that was great. And also the fundamentals I think are pretty good here.
Sort of really driven into make sure you understand the basics. Because I took I think it was management information systems. Just that falls under the business major as one of the requirements. And I remember sort of learning all that sort of basic stuff on all to do with computers.
And the fact that it's not a big department kind of also creates a more like welcoming atmosphere for you to go talk to the professors. Because I had like the same professor for most of my classes in my major. So I got pretty used to like going up to his office and being like, hey, I have questions about this, or like, can you just tell me more about this? It's not even a question I have for class, but I'm just interested, I'm just curious.
And since you're seeing them all the time, you can really just build a much stronger relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's perfect. And I think a lot of professors have their open door policy where they just have blocks of time throughout the day where they just purposely don't schedule appointments, but just have their door open so students can drop by and just get some help, say hello, whatever it is. Which I think is a really important part of what makes Augie so great, but just, I guess, enabling students to be able to learn even better.
Yep.
Is by getting that focused help as well from the professors themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I never had the opposite experience of like studying in a gigantic school, but what I hear from people who have is sometimes they wish they had that more, personal experience with the professors and stuff.
Yeah. And being a liberal arts college, Augustana requires us to take a few different varieties, a few electives in some other areas. Were there any of those classes that you took that weren't sort of computer science related that sort of stuck out to you?
Yeah, there was definitely a couple. I've always been a big history nerd. Like, I knew I wasn't gonna study it as my major or anything, but it's still like a big passion of mine. And so the couple of history classes I got to take here were really great. I was just like honestly shocked at just how great the professors were and like how much they know and just how much we're able to learn from that.
What
There
sort
was just
of
really fun classes.
What sort of history was it?
The latest one was a West Civ class, in which we studied like the late modern ages. So it would be like basically 17th, 18th, and 19th century Europe, which is like in high school and stuff and before, we hear a lot about European history of like the more obvious stuff like the Middle Ages or the Renaissance. But in this class, we got to take a more detailed look at some like parts of time that like you don't usually look into so much, but that also had some pretty interesting events. And it just kind of like helped me realize just how many different things happened throughout history that we don't know of, but had an impact in like how society is built today. Like let's say we studied the religious wars of Europe, where there was like Protestants versus Catholics, and it got bloody and whatnot. But like studying all of that and then like having to do the projects where I actually had to like read books written by historians for other historians about the subject. It just like gave me that sense that like there's so many historical events that actually happened. We only study the tip of the iceberg usually.
Yeah, there's just always those common stories or common moments in history that we do sort of know and are familiar with. But I think, I mean, there's a lot of people that have been in this world before us and a lot of events that have happened.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so I think it's really cool to dive back and sort of unpeel some of those moments that help shape where we are today. And they say that to see the future, you very much have to study the past and the history.
100%.
Yeah. I didn't realize you were into history that much. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I took an art history class when I was here. But I think it was probably that history sort of elective. And that really surprised me, honestly. That was actually one of my favorite classes because I think the section I was in started at the beginning of time. So we're looking at just cave paintings. That was sort of the first thing. And I mean, pretty sure the cave paintings were 2 billion years old or something like that. So really going back to like the first humans.
That's the thing, right? And there's so many things that like humans have been doing since then that like have been slowly changing the way we perceive things. Usually we're not taught these things.
Yeah. I just find it was fascinating because it really unlocked my mind that it's actually, you see the art over time, but it tells us so much about the people and the culture during that time period. That's why I thought that was a fascinating class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And, well, Dan, you're pretty entrepreneurial, I would say.
Somewhat.
You're big into your music production. But I also remember while you were here at Augie, you were starting a clothing brand with one of your friends, Joey.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That was a fun little side project that we did. What happened is we had done what was it called? The Holt Prize at Augustana.
That's right. You were part of that.
Yeah, we had done that the previous year.
Which is like an entrepreneurial competition.
Exactly, yeah. Where like you pitch ideas to a panel of judges, and at the end they judge the best idea based on like some requirements that change every year based on like the
topic.
Yeah, the topic of that year. So we had done that the previous year, and we just started to like build on the idea that we had prototyped, which was a clothing brand that was sustainable. Basically, it would like plant trees for like however much cotton we were using, and I don't remember exactly what other ways we were sustainable, but we were just figuring out.
It's just an entire sustainable like product and just method of distribution and
exactly
everything.
Try and make the whole process sustainable, and then like the main goal was to try to market it that way so that that was the differential, or I guess you would call it the USP of our brand, was it being sustainable. It was a great learning opportunity. I feel like there were so many little aspects of like marketing and finance and production and like logistics that I had to just figure out that I never
There's so much that goes into it.
So much that goes into it. Yeah, there's so much with like investment and like getting people to invest in it, getting people to like care, basically. But also like actually building like the couple of prototypes that we made was really fun. Also, there was the whole like we made a little web page for it where like I'm sure you remember we had a whole section of like asking people to model wearing the clothes, and we took some nice photos for the web page. Yeah, because
you got me to come and take some photos for you guys.
Yeah.
When I was back newbie little photographer.
Yeah. So that whole thing just taught me a lot, and then like making the web page, that was my first like real experience using Photoshop, for example, and like Adobe products in general. So yeah, it was just a really cool like dipping my toes into that water.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
And then we'll talk to me a bit more about just the music that you do and the music production, because I remember I'd go over to your house sometimes and you'd just be, on your guitar, just always sort of something to do with music.
Hmm.
So do you want to just tell me about, all the music stuff that you're doing?
Well, it's always been a part of my life somehow. I've always tried to keep it at least like I'm doing something related to music, even if I'm doing like, but the rest of my life I'm doing something completely different. Um, but recently I feel like I've even like taken a step back in that whole entrepreneurial side, like you said, and taking a more scientific look at it as to how things are made. So I've just been doing a lot of studying into like sound engineering and actual music production. Um, Took a few courses here at Augie actually. I don't know if you've heard, but they have a new multimedia
I've heard the entrepreneur
entrepreneurship.
multimedia major.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah,
heard of that.
which is pretty cool. I got to take 3 classes from it that were basically Pro Tools production.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Tell me about them. I'm really curious to know,
Hmm.
since it's a new major.
So it's actually the head of the department is Frank Cook, who's actually the guy that wrote the books on Pro Tools. So that's pretty cool because you get to
So
learn from
what's
him.
Pro Tools? Is that just
So Pro
audio?
Tools is, yeah, it's a digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
So it's just a software they use to not only produce music, it's really used for post production for movies and TV shows also.
Right.
So it's just like, I guess I would call it the industry standard in studios.
I've definitely come across it before.
Mhm.
I haven't
Yeah, I'm sure
personally
you've
used
heard
it.
of it. Yeah, or just like seen it.
And so Frank Cook wrote the software.
He wrote not the software, but he wrote the books that teach you how to use the software,
tutorials.
because it's a
Yeah.
pretty robust software. There's many like little different
yeah.
things that go in
I
it.
can imagine.
Yeah. And so he worked with Pro Tools to write basically the books that teach you how to use it. And so now he's teaching the folks here at Augie how to use it too. So it's really cool. You get like almost an insider view into, how it all works.
That's pretty special that all you have someone like that to be the
It is.
professor
It
for the
is.
new major.
It is. It's a great opportunity for the people that are actually in that major.
And so what were the classes that you took in that major?
So I took basically the 2 first intro classes, which were the fundamentals, Pro Tools fundamentals, which is, like the basics that everyone's gonna need to know regardless of what you use it for. And then just this last semester, I took the first actual production class. And then basically like they like branch it off throughout the major, and that's like after classes that I'm not gonna take, but the majors will. You branch off into either music production or post production for movies and TV shows. But yeah, there's just a lot that you learn, like in this music production class, or production, I guess in general. It was a lot with just figuring out the commands that make your life easier, because with the workflow, I'm sure it's no different with
Just
when
all
you're
the
editing.
keyboard shortcuts and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's just a lot that you're going to do repeatedly that's going to become very boring very quickly if you don't know a fast way to do it.
Yeah, I 100% know the feeling.
Uh-huh. And so stuff like that, or just getting deeper into like all the powerful things that the program can do, like with automation and stuff.
Yeah, it sounds pretty damn fascinating. And I think can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but we were walking past the multimedia center where they have all the gear set up, because they've got, what sort of things do they have in that room?
So you mean the one
They've got like computers to edit in, and
oh yeah, each one of those like stations is its own little studio because it has an audio interface. Each one has an audio interface and a mic and headphones, so you can pretty much do all of the stuff you would need either for class or for any project there. But then they also now have an actual studio in the basement of the humanities. I don't know if you've checked that one out.
in the basement. No, I don't think I have.
So it's Studio 47, I believe it's what it's called.
Right.
And it's like an actual like room that's just one big studio. It's got like a room to the side with the well, actually they just changed it again because they keep every like couple of months they'll completely change the setup because they're trying to do something new.
Yeah.
I think now they're trying to uh make the main room to where you can listen to it with Dolby Atmos like 5.1,
Yeah.
right?
So
Surround
surround
sound. Yeah,
sound. Yeah.
surround sound. Um but yeah, like generally they have the room to the side be where the computer is and the mixers and stuff. And then the big one in the back is where all the recording happens. They have like a piano and then a
Oh,
bunch
so
of
it's a full-on
microphones.
recording
Yeah,
studio.
yeah. It's
Oh
pretty
my
nice.
gosh.
It's honestly pretty nice.
Because I did a campus tour a few days ago, and that's when I had one of the students here, Lauren. She took me around.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to her, and I was sort of pondering the question: if they had that major, would I have somehow gravitated towards that, like
Right.
knowing the work that I do now?
Right, for sure.
And I think that's very spectacular that they've got their own studio as well.
100%. Yeah, and I ask myself the same question sometimes. You know, if this major existed before I came, like 2 years ago, would I have gravitated towards it?
Yeah,
I don't know. Possibly.
I'm thinking yes. Well, especially that you took a few of the classes as well.
Yeah.
And so, where do you see your passion for music going for you?
That's a great question that I feel like I ask myself every day. um, I know that I'm gonna continue to make music for myself. There's always like at some given point in my life something I'm trying to express that I'll do best by making a song or by like producing something instrumental or with lyrics or depends. Um, but also I've realized in the last couple of years that I've taken this more like sciencey approach to figuring out how things work, that just a great tool for like meeting people and collaborating with people and therefore like learning new ways of doing things, learning about new genre or not new genres, but new to me. Um and stuff like that. Like for example, I'll meet people who I'll talk to and be like, "Hey, yeah, I make this type of music." Like, "Oh, I make rap, I make rock." And they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I make jazz." I don't know. And it's like, I've never recorded a jazz song, but I would surely want to try, and just so it's just something I'm always going to be learning more about, I feel like, and just always going to be with me.
I think it's really cool to share with other people too and actually collaborate.
100%, yeah.
And to hear other people's perspectives and how they perceive music and their own sort of genres and styles
Exactly.
as well.
It's the most fun part because there's obviously a lot of fun to doing it by yourself, but when you can share that feeling with other people, that feeling of like we've created something together and we can hear it and it sounds great, or hopefully it sounds great.
Well, at least to the group that made it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a really great feeling.
And so you've met quite a few people in town in Sioux Falls who are music producers and you've collaborated on a few pieces together?
A couple times, yeah. I have one song that's out with a homie of mine, Deshaun, who raps much better than me. And so, like...
So what is your style?
Man.
Are you still working that out?
Yeah, who knows, man. I have like each song I put out sounds completely different from the last one, is what I've noticed. So, it just depends. Like, I like putting out projects that aren't just one song, because, like algorithm wise, it would be smarter probably to just post one song at a time and like focus everything on that. But I feel like it's not as fun as building a project that's like more concise and has like a concept to it. So the genre also depends on that concept. I feel like whether I'm feeling more guitar folky and making something that like sounds like Brazilian samba maybe, or versus if I'm feeling more urban and I want to make something that's more like upbeat, and then I'll bring in either some hip hop or maybe I'll bring in an electric guitar and make like a heavy metal song.
So it's very experimental and based on sort of the mood and what you're just trying to communicate.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a blessing and a curse because I get to make all these different things, but also not ever focus on one too much.
Well, I think that's totally fine, especially while you're still young as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just experiment as much as possible, and then you'll get to a point where you realize, hey, this is my style. This is what I love.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking to me before we started recording, that you have a few housemates that you've sort of grown pretty close to, a few Americans. So you're really starting to, I don't know, accept the US as sort of the part of culture that you're in.
Yeah, 100%. Like when you come to America, you like attempt to assimilate into the culture because it's like, oh, I'm here, I'm a student, I should understand how things are done. But now I feel like it's on a different level. It's on like, I live here and these people are the people I'll be seeing every day, like just in my day-to-day life. So like it's important to understand not only how they think, but more deeply like how they perceive things, you know. And I feel like a lot of that is just how you were raised, the weather, and just the culture. And it's things I'm learning every day more, like the different, not just the differences, but um like what makes the people from here them, you know, what makes them them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it does. And I think it's a very important reflection to have
mm-hmm.
because I've sort of really started to think about this too, what it means for me to have been born and raised in Australia, coming here to the US, even though the cultures aren't too different, but I still find that there's just things that when I talk to people that maybe we just don't agree on and we can't sort of see the same line of thinking, which I think is just ultimately the backgrounds that we've come from. And we ultimately don't have any control of where we grew up in.
Oh yeah. You definitely understand that difference in just like how you were brought up versus how someone who lived here their entire lives was brought up. And it's like you're saying, sometimes you won't see eye to eye on some stuff. And like the first reaction is to be like, why don't they see this the way I see this? But when you start to really understand how or why they think that way, how they came to that conclusion, I think most differences in thought make a lot more sense. And you start to see also the similarities.
It seems like to me you're starting to really open that up more and more and sort of really start to understand the walks of life with the people that you hang out with.
For sure.
I think that's something where just naturally through time, it just becomes more clear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Growing up.
Yeah, there you go. So you don't have any plans to go back home to Brazil at all? You want to stay in the US? That's sort of the plan?
Pretty much. I'm going back home in January for like a couple weeks to visit my family and friends. But like as far as where I'm living and stuff, the plan is to stay here for a while. Mm-hmm.
And do you, with computer science, is that part of STEM or no?
It is.
It is?
Uh-huh.
Beautiful. So you get 2 or 3 years of OPT to work here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you got plenty of time then.
Thankfully, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so Danny, I love to ask this question because since we're at college and we get letter grades all the time,
yeah,
I want to ask you, with your Augustana experience and having only just graduated last week, what letter grade would you give your experience here at Augustana?
As in like
A, B, C, D, E, F?
No, yeah, but I mean it's like the experience I've had, as in how I've lived here or what I've seen, or I guess both.
Just your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just with all the classes that you've done, with all the things that you've learned, the people that you've interacted with.
Probably something like a B plus. Yeah, because it's been pretty great overall. There's been a few hiccups here and there, you know, with just like things that are normal in life. Some things will go wrong. But
are there any hiccups that you wanted to share?
Not particularly.
No, that's totally fine. And I think your time here at Augie got interrupted a little bit with you spending a semester back home as well.
There was that, yeah. With the pandemic and everything, and just like not even just a pandemic. I was also just in part of my life where there was a bit there where I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go anymore. So it was kind of important to take that step back, go home, relax for a bit, be with my family, and then like come back here with more motivation and like drive to, because then I knew where I wanted to go and stuff. But yeah, just with things like that, I think B plus makes sense because if it were a class, it would be like great overall, couple assignments that
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
still
do.
crushing it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So B plus, I feel like gives it a good summary.
Yeah. No, I think
Mhm.
that's a terrific score, and I think it's well warranted with the experiences that we've talked about over the
Mhm.
last 50 minutes or so.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Terrific.
Time flies.
Oh yeah. No, it's been a great conversation. And Danny, I want to ask you if you could give some advice to an international student who is listening to this
Mhm.
and thinking, should I take the leap of faith and come over to college in the US? What would you say to them?
Um, First of all, do it for sure. Um, there's nothing that's gonna substitute the experience of actually coming here and living a completely different life than you would if you just stayed in your hometown. Um, but also like remember who you are and like never forget why you're here, what brought you here, and like the things that you really want to achieve. I guess just like keep the eye on the go. No.
Perfect. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's terrific advice. And for you, Danny, if you do a little bit of self reflection for me, if you want to think about just how you've transformed over the time that you've been here in the US at Augustana, do you want to just tell me how you think, or how at least you believe yourself that you have actually changed over this time?
I think in general, I just matured a lot, became a lot more of an real adult, which I guess is normal because I came here when I was 18. So literally going from teenager to adult, but psychologically, I can definitely tell where the changes are, and it's just like how I treat people, like kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, understanding the differences in how people were raised and people's perspectives. I feel like I understand that a lot better now than I did before. So that helps with understanding people and just discussions in general, whatever it is about. Um,
And do you think that's being part of a group, say like in the IPO, surrounded by people from all walks of life from all parts of the world? Do you think that's where that sort of come from?
um, Definitely also that I would say if it weren't for the IPO and all the other people here who also are international and who also are going through similar things, I may have not understood that it was okay to feel like I was really different and like am I crazy? People here don't seem to understand me. But where the shock really and the shock I mean in the sense like the shock that's necessary for me to grow up like that really came from the experiences I had with the locals, if I can call it that.
Yeah. And you told me before that the first 2 years were very much on campus, lots of international students, lots of other students interacting with, but the
Yeah,
last 2 years
yeah.
you've been living off campus.
Mhm.
So you have sort of lived that more local US, South
Yeah,
Dakotan lifestyle.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. And it's also good to have lived both to be able to compare and get like gain the knowledge that comes from both for
So which is better? Do you like dorm life or house life?
sure. Well, in general, I have to say house life, because you have a lot more freedom to just do the things you want to your room, and you have your own kitchen, your own bathroom, and stuff like that. Which there's I don't think there's any discussion that that's better than having to share a bathroom with 20 other
Oh, I
people.
disagree. I
Really?
love living in the dorm, honestly.
Really? I mean, I enjoyed it too, but do you enjoy it more than living by yourself?
Well, I guess I feel like you can always sort of live by yourself at any certain point. So that's why if I had the choice right now, I'd love to live in a dorm.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, would that be the forever? Probably not.
Right.
But
right.
I very much cherish my time in the dorms here, just interacting with people, brushing teeth, going to the toilet, just seeing them and just rubbing shoulders
Yeah.
and just those random conversations and moments that you catch people in as well.
No, that's a great point. That's definitely something that you get in the dorms that you don't really get when you start living off campus. So there's some great aspects to living in the dorms. Don't get me wrong.
Be like your independence.
But yeah. I feel like right now that's where I'm at.
Perfect. And Danny, is there anything else that you'd like to share as we've been talking? I don't know if there's been any moments that have popped up that you thought might be good to share.
Oh no. I guess I definitely wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here and just I really appreciate what you're doing with this project. I feel like it's really cool overall to get to discuss those experiences and also hear it from like other people like with Cesar and Mika and the other episodes you have. It's
Thanks, bro. That really means a lot.
For sure, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
For sure. It's something that like I feel like a lot of us international students have felt, but we didn't have a platform for it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I very much feel the passion to share not only like it sort of sparked my own experience just being like, hey, this was life-changing for me. Like I want to communicate that to people, but then I really look at all the amazing people that I shared that with. And I look at how proud I am to see even yourself, how much you've grown up over the last 4 years or 5 years at Augie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just am really passionate about sharing people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to catch up with you, Danny, and thank you for coming back to college with me.
Thank you.